Okay guys, it's time to test out our second expanding 300 blackout subsonic bullet. This is the 200 grain Maker Rex. Pretty cool bullet. Alright, before we get into it, let's cover the boring stuff. This is part of a series. So we're testing about 20 bullets for Subsonic 300 blackout. Most are match bullets. We're testing for accuracy. But this guy and the 194 grain Lehigh Defense maximum expansion are a special case. You know, these are expanding bullets for, you know, maybe hunting or self-defense or all sorts of different stuff. So yeah, these two are a little bit different. The larger, so we've got two different test guns. We've got an 8.5 inch SBR with pistol gas. We've got a 16-inch rifle with carbine gas. Both are 1 in 8 twists. And I've got a playlist together. I have links up here for our bullet testing playlist, which starts with an introduction video that covers the guns really well and a lot of the, you know, the reloading details that you might be interested in. And another playlist that's all of our 300 blackout videos that covers even more than just the current bullet testing. So a lot of your questions may be answered in those, so I would recommend checking those out. Alright, now let's get down to it. Really cool bullet maker. Maker Bullets. They've got about 8 million bullets I want to try out. This is the first bullet of theirs I've tried, and man, they make some really cool ones for a lot of different guns that I own that I want to try out. But we'll see how this one goes first. Pretty darn expensive. $42 for a box of 50. Gives us about 84 cents a piece. They are only cheap when compared to the Lehighs, which are $1.50 a piece. So they're still pretty darn expensive. Let's have an up-close look at these guys. You can see big, gnarly hollow point, big cuts down the side of the bullet. These things expand like crazy. Like crazy. Yeah, they just expand massive and have near 100% weight retention, so they say. So we shall see. You might notice these are like, well, I don't know. The finish is not as pretty as the Lehighs. For one, I don't see machining marks on them, so I don't know if they're. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they're a machined bullet, you know, from basically solid copper, but I don't know where the heck the machining marks go. And the discoloration, I don't know if they were annealed, or I don't really know what's going on here, you know, or maybe they were just sitting around a while. You know, this is how copper looks after it sits around a while. So I don't think it's going to affect function, but they're a little bit ugly. Got to be honest with you. But that doesn't matter if they perform. So I picked up 100. That's what we've been, you know, our bullet testing videos, we've been shooting 100 bullets, and it's barely enough to do what we want to do. Because we're shooting 2 different powders. I already said 2 different guns. So we're basically looking at 4 different loads we're working up. So that only gives us 25 bullets or bullets per, you know, gun and powder combination. So we've got to be a little bit stingy. And we'll get into that here in just a minute. So I weighed these out. I weighed them all just to see what sort of consistency we were looking for and how it compared to Lehigh. Let's look at that chart. I charted it out really quick. You can see it's excellent. The vast majority, 37, were right on the money at 200 grains, and yeah, that 199.8 up to 200.1 is yeah, it covers all of them except for what, 8. So we had eight of them that were lighter. They're below, but nothing very much. What is that, like total extreme spread there of about 0.8 of a grain. I consider that outstanding. I would consider that outstanding. Couple problems that we're going to be on the lookout for. They don't have any load data on their website, or any available that I know of. So I've been searching the internet to find out what other people were doing, and ran into a big thread over at 300 Black Talk forum that's been going on for a couple months. It's about 16 pages long, and it's several guys having issues getting these guys to stabilize. So I read through the whole damn thread, and hopefully once we, maybe we learn something here, we can, go back and return the favor, post our results there as well. But one thing I did was able to kind of look at is see what sort of overall lengths a couple different guys were using, and I ended up settling on 2.1 inches. So yeah, here's a look at a bullet next to a seated bullet at 2.1 inches. There's no cantilever or anything specific that we were seating to, so it's kind of right there in the middle of I guess you'd call that the front driving band. So yeah. So the way we normally, well, okay, one more thing before we get to it. In that thread I was in that forum thread I was talking about, when it started out, they were actually shooting a different design. This design, I think, is what they're calling the Rev 1. So there was a design before this that I guess they were calling the Rev 0. That was pretty drastically different with the way it was grooved and stuff. So I believe I got the latest design, and it hasn't been out all that long. And at first I started thinking about that like as a pretty big negative, right? Like, okay, so I spent a lot of money on expensive bullets. I go out and I work up my load, and then maybe I go back to buy more, and the manufacturer's already switched to Rev 2, But then I realized what a douche move that was, because for one, the manufacturers in that thread, they're trying their best. They're trying to give advice to these shooters that are having issues. They're responding to feedback. So this is a moving target, right? There's not a lot of companies out there making cool bullets like this, so why should I, punish somebody because they're still kind of tweaking their design? And maybe they're not, maybe this is the last one and this will be available for 50 years. I don't know, and I've just decided that I don't care. If they've come up with an improved design the next time I go to order, then that's a good thing. That means that the leading edge of 300 blackout bullet design is moving forward. That's where we're at, right? That's we're on the cutting edge, brother. That's where we're at. So if things change, then that's just how it is. I don't see the big bullet manufacturers offering anything up for us to try. No Sierra, no Hornady. So I need to keep my mouth shut and just be happy that something like this is available. All right, let's get started. The way I've been doing this, we're going to do the load development just like we've been doing with our other match bullets, or with the match bullets, and it's worked out reasonably well. What we do is we take each powder and gun combination, we load up 5 rounds, and just go out and test them. Number one, looking for velocity data, of course, because we want to hone in on, our target is about 1,050 feet per second. Subsonic threshold, the supersonic threshold around here, I generally see it at about 1130, so 1050 gives me plenty of headroom to play with, so that's a good target. We're looking for 1050 feet per second. So want to go out, try 5 different loads, and just see where the velocities go. We'll make a little chart, and hopefully we can extrapolate from that and come up with a load that gives us the velocity we're looking for. At the same time, we're also looking to see how it functions the gun. Our pistol gas gun, we're going to run just fine. We're not going to have any function issues, I don't think. But our carbine gas gun, our 16-inch barrel, Winchester 296 is not the best powder for that platform. But if you've got a 16-inch barrel with pistol gas, you're good to go, brother. You're in good shape. But, so that's why I want to go ahead and shoot it in the 16-inch gun, even though we know we're going to have function issues, but no big deal. All right, let's get started. Let's see. All right, let's start with the 16-inch gun. And we're going to shoot accurate 1680. We're going to shoot 9.7 grains up to 10.9 grains. So let's go ahead and hit the range and see how those do. Okay, time to get started. We've got our 16-inch gun here. Carbine gas, AR Stoner barrel, 1 and 8 twist. So let's see what they make of it. We've got, yeah, our target's at 10 yards or less, probably like 7 yards. So we're looking for nice holes in the paper to make sure we're not, we're flying stable. We're looking for velocity data, and we're looking for function. We're going to load them one at a time in the magazine, and we'll see if it locks the bolt back. The first 5 rounds are going to be accurate 1680. I expect good function, but once we switch to Winchester 296 here, without the suppressor, we're probably not going to hold the bolt open, so that's expected. Your 16-inch barrel with pistol gas should run fine with Winchester 296. So, all right. First up, 9.7 grains. And before we do that, let's run it through the action here. Make sure nothing weird happened. That few minor marks on the bullets that would be expected. Nothing at all. Okay. A little hot on velocity here, aren't we? That's okay. Still in the ballpark. What are we up to? 10.6. Good deal. Good function is expected with accurate 1680. Let me go have a look at those bullet holes. All right, so the bullet holes are a little bit wonky, and we saw the same thing with the Lehigh Defense maximum expansion. Very similar bullet. They're not keyholing. I wouldn't call it keyholing, but there's a little bit of a tail waggle. And seen this with other bullets, seen it with cast lead bullets, kind of seen it quite a bit. It's not enough to where I'm worried about baffle strikes so much, but we'll see how it's going to affect accuracy. Might just not be quite as stable as we'd like, or it could just be my paper and my backing just are not very good for this. Maybe I should switch to a foam board, something thicker, something like that, but whatever. Not too shabby, perfect function, velocities, a little bit hot, but that's okay. We were still, in the ballpark we needed to be in. And the holes, the bullet holes, we'll talk about that at the end once we get through, all 4 of our powder and bullet combinations. So let's look at a chart here for this first guy. There you go. So this is just simply, our shots charted with, charge weight versus velocity. You can see the line crosses 1,050 feet per second, right about 9.8 grains. So what we want to do is I want to pick out 3 different charge weights to test. And we pick out these charge weights, then we're going to load up 5 round groups, of 5 shots of each charge, and then go shoot 5-shot groups for accuracy at longer range. So what I'm going to do with this guy is, let's do 9.6, 9.8, and 10.0. That covers that area right around 1,050 feet per second pretty well, and hopefully somewhere in there we'll find us a good shooting load with the velocity we're looking for. So that's pretty much it. Let's do that 3 more times. So let's head back out. What's next? Winchester 296 with the 16-inch gun. We're shooting 8.1 grains up to 9.3 grains. So let's see what happens. Yep, no bolt lock back. Okay, good deal. I can tell through the scope, bullet holes kind of look the same as the previous 5. So, I'm not going to freak out too much about it, but it's got me a little bit concerned about what we're going to see accuracy-wise. Another thing that's really surprised me, so I shot these exact same loads with the Lehigh Defense Maximum Expansion, the 194 grain. This bullet is shooting significantly hotter velocity-wise, you know, shooting significantly faster than the Lehigh did with the same charge weights. So nothing bad about that. Just a random observation. Okay, so we were a little bit hot on that guy, right, as far as velocity goes. Let's look at the chart. That's okay though. See, we can extrapolate down. Looks like the line is crossing 1,050 feet per second right at 7.7 grains. But I'm not trusting it completely. Like, man, that seems low. I'm going to bump it up 1. I'm going to shoot 7.6, 7.8, and 8.0. So I'm kind of just leaning by 1/10 up to the hotter side of things, but I think that's still going to put us, you know, right there in the wheelhouse. Yep, that looks good. So back out, and we're switching over to our 8.5-inch gun, and starting with accurate 1680, shooting 10.7 up to 11.9 grains. All right, switch over to our 8.5-inch. SBR with Rainier Ultra Match, 8.5-inch barrel, pistol gas, of course, and it is also a 1-in-8 twist. Let's see if they'll fly. First of all, let's run one through, just make sure we're not having any issues, and we're not. Very similar sort of you know, a few little nicks and scratches like you'd expect, but nothing drastic, nothing that I would expect to cause issues. So let's see if they'll run. Now, pistol gas here, this should run just perfect. I don't expect any function issues whatsoever. First load, accurate 1680, 10.7 grains. Okay, there we go. Let's look at the chart. Yeah, right around 11 grains. Looks like our 1050 number. So let's shoot 10.8, 11.0, and 11.2. Sound good? Alright, let's get back out and look at Winchester 296. Yep, velocity a little hot on this one. That's okay. Woo! Okay, 9.7. Alright, so this guy misjudged big time. Like, what we start? We started out at 1100, 1117 feet per second. A little bit hotter than I was anticipating, so when we look at this graph, that is gross. And especially that one guy that looks low, that really screws our graph up. Like, really screws our graph up. So what I'm going to do is just ignore that one shot. We've tested enough bullets that, this isn't uncommon. Sometimes you get one shot that's just a little bit goofy. So if we drop that shot, there we go, there's an updated graph. Now that looks a whole lot better. A whole lot better. So the graph is telling us that 8.1 grains should get us 1,050 feet per second. But I don't believe it. Just going by some experience with some other bullets and what we saw with the Maker bullets, or I'm sorry, the Lehigh bullets, I'm gonna cheat on the high side. Let's shoot 8.2, 8.4, and 8.6 grains. So even 8.6 grains, our chart is telling us that's going to be below 1100 feet per second. So I don't think we're going to be too hot, but I just kind of want to cheat up on that high side to make sure we don't go too low. Yeah, good deal. I think that's some loads. So you know what I forgot to mention, or for what I forgot to talk about, was kind of how I'm actually shooting the Lehigh bullets and the Maker bullets. I'm basically filming these two videos in parallel. So this video is going to be the load workup portion for the Makers. I'm doing an exact duplicate video with the Lehighs, just working up the loads. And then I'm going to do a third video where I shoot the two against one another. We look at accuracy, and also I have cooked up some ballistic gel. Yep, here you go. Big jug of ballistic gel. I've got two of these, so I should be able to split these guys in half and end up with 4 blocks to play with. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe answer some questions, because I'm particularly curious how they're going to perform at distance. I really want to shoot these guys into a block at 100 yards and see if they still have enough energy and whatnot to get good penetration and good expansion. So that's going to be the third video. Yep, kind of forgot to mention that. So we've got our loads, right? We've got 12 loads. We're going to shoot 5 shots of each. So I need to get resituated. Did I talk about our powders? I did, didn't I? No, I didn't. Winchester 296 is going to be one of our test powders, and Accurate 1680. I'm using the same powders with both bullets, so this is really, as close as I can get to a head-to-head comparison between the two. Really hoping this Maker's going to kick ass, because these are cheaper. Alright, here's what we forgot to talk about. Holy crap, I can't believe I just almost forgot to talk about it. The bullet holes. There are our bullet holes, and I keep forgetting what I've talked about. I'm losing my mind. So the biggest part of that forum thread I was talking about is about bullets not flying straight through paper. And you can see, I see a lot of the same stuff they are. Just going in a little bit sideways. It seems that the 8.5 inch barrel did slightly better than the 16, but both kind of had, can you guys see what the heck I'm talking about? I think you can. There you go. Not horrible, but not awesome. The plan is, so the 60 rounds I'm about to load up for our accuracy testing, the plan is to go ahead and put the suppressor on, shoot those suppressed. I think we're mostly safe. if this was any other bullet, I would probably just dump the bullet, to be honest with you. Because, I really don't want to have a baffle strike. I haven't had my suppressor all that long. Big investment. I'd really rather not kill it, but I think we're okay. Because in that thread, a lot of guys seeing the same stuff, and a lot of them are shooting it through their suppressors, and seem to be doing okay. So we'll see. Now, yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing, though. The Maker bullets. Not as bad, but some of the exact same thing. Just kind of has a little skid mark. Just not quite as perfectly stable as we would like. Now, if these are flying like crazy, then I can't imagine they're going to group whenever we test them. I'll probably test, our accuracy tests in this one at 75 yards, just to, bring them in a little bit to make sure we get them on paper. If they aren't going to fly straight, maybe we'll still get some on paper. If we have problems, we can bring it in even further. But if they fly okay, then the next video when we're doing, our final accuracy tests and our gel tests, we'll push it out to 100 yards. But for this one, we'll probably stick to 75 yards. Alright, that's that. I need to get my crap together and get to loading. Alright, so the brass we're using is some stuff, it's Lake City 556 that I formed. It's been shot several times, so it's been doing a pretty good job for us. I have it all sized, primed, ready for powder and bullets. If if you need more information about the process up to this point, just check the playlist. There's a ton of info there, videos on those processes. But from this, we're just doing powder bullets. For one thing, I saw it on that forum thread I was telling you about, and also experienced it myself. So when I was loading up those first 20 rounds for our crude velocity testing, the first couple bullets I checked, I was scraping some copper. Seated them down and was getting some copper shavings, and they were hard to seat. So, and I found the exact same thing with the Lehigh Defense bullets as well. So I went ahead and pulled out my Lee Universal Expanding die and just set it for a pretty light flare, but enough to where, yeah, these guys are sitting down in there nicely now. So, I'll tell you what, I'll get one that hasn't been flared. The bow tail goes down in there, and they seem to start okay. But man, when you start to seat it, it really just kind of likes to scrape a little bit. So, just that tiny little bit of flare worked perfect. And yeah, so no problem there. I'm also using the Lee Factory crimp die, and I've got it set very light as well. Basically just enough to take out the flare that we added. Because once I started shaving some, I started worrying that maybe this stuff is softer than a normal copper jacket or something. So I just didn't want to put a heavy crimp on it and end up distorting the bullet or causing issues in that way. So just enough flare to where we're not shaving any brass and the bullet seating feels nice, and then just enough crimp to take that away to make sure we're going to get reliable feeding. We are using a Forster Ultra Micrometer seating die, pretty darn good seating die that we've had a lot of success with here on the channel. So that's pretty much it. I need to, we'll be, hand weighing every charge, weighing them with my Gem Pro 250 scale, and hand trickling them. So that's what I need to get started. I'll get the first 5 charges. Well, first I'll get all of the case mouths expanded. Then I'll get the first 5 charges weighed, and then we'll be ready to start setting our bullet seating die. Alright, there's our first 5 charges. And just set the bullets down in there. What did I say our overall length was? 2.1 inches. So let's... We've got our seating die backed way the heck out. Or at least I thought I did. Oh man, that might be too short. Dang it. Hate it when that happens. Oh yeah, nice. 2.116, so we're about 15 thousandths long. So, I tell you what, let's go 16 thousandths. .100. Now with the Lehigh bullets, I had some overall length variation, a little bit more than I would like. So let's run these first 5 through and measure them before we do any crimping. Kind of running them up in there, bringing them down, turning them 90 degrees, and then running them back in. I usually find that results in more consistent overall length whenever I'm worrying about such things. Okay. 2.102. 2.102. 2.103, 2.100, and this one was 2.100. That is not too bad. I can live with a couple thousandths of variation. Yep, lightly crimping. So like here's one that I just crimped, and here's one that has not been crimped. And you shouldn't see a darn difference. Basically nothing. So just lightly touching them enough to get that case mouth flare out of the way. Alright, so now starts the long boring process of hand weighing 55 more charges and seating the bullets. If anything exciting happens, I'll let you know. Alright, so I'm down to seating these last couple bullets. Nothing unexpected has happened during the loading process. It's all gone really smoothly. Can't wait to try these. I tell you, the goofy holes in the paper's got me nervous, but I'm not going to give up until we see what these groups look like. So we are ready. Let's get to the range. All right, so we finally got some good weather that's going to allow us to shoot these guys. Had to wait a week because of the rain, but we're in the backyard. We've got a target out here right about 70 yards, maybe just a couple of yards shy of 70 yards. Yep, out there. And here's our position. We're going to shoot from the prone with a bipod and a rear bag. We've been shooting this way for all of our 300 blackout bullet testing, and it's done a pretty good job for us, so we're just going to stick with it. So let's just see whether these guys are going to fly. Say a little prayer for my suppressor, right? We saw a little bit of instability earlier, so I don't think it's enough to worry about a baffle strike, but yeah, it is what it is. So we do have our Omega Silencer Co. Omega suppressor on, and our our Magneto Speed V3 chronograph hanging off the front there. So let's get to it See how they shoot. All right, our first load, we are starting with a 16-inch gun, if that's not obvious. Our first load is 9.6 grains of accurate 1680. I just got, so the gun's warm and ready to rock. I've been shooting the Lehigh Defense 194 grain maximum expansion. Those guys were a little bit disappointing out of the 16-inch gun. So we shall see if the makers fare any better. Yep, 9.6 grains. So as you can tell, the wind just kind of picked up there for a second. I'm having to wait out the wind. Temperatures are in the 80s. You know, it's a warm day. It's pretty muggy out here, pretty high humidity and gusty winds, but I've got nothing but time today. So we're just going to wait it out, take our time, make every shot count. Velocity's a touch low on these first two shots. 1,004 feet per second and 1,014 feet per second, but that's okay. We got two hotter charges to test, so looks like we're going to be in the right ballpark at least. All right. That is not a bad start at all. Not a bad start at all. So that group, that's already better than any of the 6 groups I shot with this gun with the maker, or with the Lehighs. So I'm already a little bit freaking stoked here. Okay, 9.8 grains is next. All right, another pretty good group. Velocity, we were right on top of it. 1,055 feet per second average. It's going to be hard to top that. Okay, our last accurate 1680 load is 10 grains. So our velocity is going to be a little bit hot, but that may be okay. You know, if this trend of halfway decent standard deviation continues, you know, even if this is, let's say, 1,075 feet per second, as long as we, you know, standard deviation's low enough to where we feel sure that it can stay subsonic all the time, you know, we might as well take advantage of that extra little bit of velocity. So let's see what happens. All right, very nice. Standard deviation of 6.2. Just outstanding. Outstanding. All right, we're playing with house money now, so let's switch over to our Winchester 296 loads and see how they do. All right, our first load of Winchester 296 is 7.6 grains. Yep, we didn't quite feed that next round. Not totally surprising, so it looks like our velocity's low. That first one was only 950 feet per second. And Winchester 296 and the carbine gas system that's in this, they don't play well together. But if you're shooting pistol gas in your 16-inch barrel, you should get good function out of Winchester 296. Alright, so our velocity spread on that one was a little bit gross. Yeah, and most of that spread came from that first shot, which was 946 feet per second, which was, that looks like 60, well, about 50 feet per second slower than the next fastest one. This is kind of what I saw with the Lehigh defense bullets, just really gross velocity spread. All right, 7.8 grains is next. All right, better all around. Velocity looked good, standard deviation was respectable, and the group was outstanding. Okay, last load of 296 is 8 grains. Beautiful. Boy, oh boy, I could not be happier. I was really worried about these guys. After I saw how the Lehighs flew, I thought these would be worse, but man, they just freaking shot outstanding. Those are pretty darn good groups. Not that much worse than, you know, what we've been seeing with match bullets through our testing. So let's get switched out to the SBR and see how it does. All right, time to see what our 8.5-inch SBR makes of these Maker Rexes. Just got done shooting the Lehighs in this gun, and it shot them really well. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen here. First up is going to be 10.8 grains of accurate 1680. Wow, that one took a nosedive. Huh, see what the velocity was on that third shot. That was weird. Velocity was normal. It was 1,065 feet per second. The average for the 5 was 1057. Huh, that's weird. Just a true flyer, I guess. I don't like those. Hopefully that's not a thing. Okay, 11 grains. Okay, 11.2 grains. We might get a stray super here. Going to be a little bit hot. Well, that's pretty gross. Pretty gross. So these guys in this gun did not like 1680, it doesn't seem. Alright, let's hope Winchester 296 does a little bit better. First up is 8.2 grains. That's a little bit more like it. Hopefully I got my camera low enough for you guys to see that. Shot a little bit low. Our velocity's low. That is okay. Nice looking group. Okay, 8.4 grains. Velocity and standard deviation look a little bit better. Hopefully this last load will get us right up around that 1050 mark. .6 grains. Alright, a little bit disappointed in the groups with the 8.5 inch gun here. Alright, let's get packed up, get inside, get back to the bench and see what we can make of all this. Well, at least this hasn't been boring, I guess. Or at least for me, probably boring for you, not for me. Let's have a look at some updated charts. And we'll start with the 16 inchers. Here's the accurate 1680 chart. Remember, this is the combo that worked pretty well, right? Our 16-inch gun shot pretty decent groups. We were pretty darn close on the velocity. That 9.8 grain charge got us pretty darn close. Average velocity 1,055 feet per second. Our three groups standard deviations were 17.1, 10.3, and 6.2. So those are perfectly respectable numbers. We were right on top of our velocity, so this was all good. All right, now let's switch over to Winchester 296. There was that one shot way down there low at 7.6 grains that kind of messed things up a little bit, but otherwise, you know, the groups were bunched together reasonably well. So, you know, that first standard deviation got jacked up, you know, it was 34.1, but the others were 16.7 and 11.4. Not stellar, but pretty darn good. And once again, we were right on top of the velocities. That middle charge, that 7.8 grain charge, average velocity 1,046 feet per second. Now, this is where things kind of went south. Whenever we move on to our 8.5 inch, our standard deviations weren't really terrible, but the groups really were garbage. So here we were a little bit on the hot side, right? Our lowest charge there of 10.8 grains got us 1,057 feet per second. Our standard deviations were 12.1, 14.9, and 11.6. So not too bad. We were a touch hot on charge weight. 10.7 looks like it would have been just about perfect, but they kind of didn't really shoot all that well anyway. So moving along to Winchester 296. This is the one, if you remember, our test shots were way hot and we were really guessing, you know, on charge weights, but we got pretty close. Our highest charge ended up being 1,045 feet per second. Our standard deviations weren't too bad, 14, 6.3, and 9.2. So, not too bad. Looks like 8.6 or 8.7 would be ideal here. Yeah. Okay. So, we got where we needed to be with all of our powder and bullet combinations and gun combinations. So let's look at the groups. We'll start out with the 16 inch, which was pretty decent shooting. See, most of the groups were between 1 inch and 2 inch. We had this one guy that was just over 2 inches, but otherwise all of them were in that 1 to 2 inch range, which is pretty darn okay. You know, I would certainly call that, you know, hunting accuracy. You're not going to be winning any matches, but, you know, if you're, you know, like you say, hunting accuracy. And it's not like these guns have got an incredibly long range in subsonic conditions. You know, I hope to find out a little bit more about that in the next video where we shoot some ballistic gel at distance. But, you know, if I'm hitting the woods and considering this a 100-yard gun, or maybe a 75-yard gun, this would get the job done. Yeah. So let's see. Anything interesting to look at here? No, not really, because they're all kind of pretty darn similar. So we need to pick a winner. We need to pick our best load. And if you'll recall, the 16-inch barrel, Winchester 296 did not run the gun. Did not run the gun very well at all. You know, we were failures to feed nonstop. So we'll basically just forget about these. Winchester Accurate 1680. This would be our closest candidate there. 1,055 feet per second. Shot a 1 3/4 inch group. I think we'll call that our winner. So it gets a purple circle. Overall, pretty happy with the performance in the 16-inch gun, but these guys still just weren't flying perfect. Let's see if I can find you a good example. They're all just a little bit, but like, yeah, that one little guy that kind of flew out there, you can see a little skid mark, a little bit wonky looking. They're just not flying quite perfect. But could be worse. And speaking of worse, here's our 8.5 inch. Much worse. Yeah, we had two groups that were bigger than 3 inches. Especially this one guy with this one that went crazy. And it really kind of, that's the closest to a keyhole we've had. but almost every single shot just has those funky smear marks that show that it was flying a little crooked. So I think it's clear Winchester 296 shot a little bit better. Still kind of crappy, but you know, 1.6, 1.6, 2, and a little over 2. So still not great, but better. Probably still in that area where you could call it acceptable hunting accuracy. But accurate 1680, man, they just throwing those ones crazy all over the place. That's not awesome. So we're looking at Winchester 296, and that is our guy that was about 1,050 feet per second. So we will call this guy our winner. So here's the plan. I'll take our 2 winning loads, and I think I mentioned earlier in the video, this was exactly opposite of what I saw with the Maker. So it's not like, oh, the Maker didn't shoot well, so we've got the Lehigh to fall back on. Nope. This was the Lehigh's 8.5 inch target. Pretty good groups. So exactly opposite. The Maker shot like crap in the 8.5, but shot great with the Lehighs. And the 16 inch Lehigh target, it wasn't quite as bad as the 8.5 inch Maker target, but it's still kind of crappy. 2.5 inches, quite a few groups. So honestly, I should probably buy some more of these bullets and play around some more, because I think powder is going to be critical. Finding the right powder that gets these guys to launch without getting them flying in an unstable fashion might be the answer. And I don't think either of these powders was the perfect powder. Just more questions, man. That's all you ever end up with, is more questions. So we're going to we've got 20 bullets left. I'm going to take 10 and load them up with this charge. I'm going to take 10 and load them up with this charge. And then the next video we'll have the 20 Makers, the 20 Lehighs, and we'll shoot a little bit more for accuracy, and we'll put some of them into ballistic gel. I'm curious whether we're going to get consistent expansion into the gel with these guys flying wonky. You got to think, if one of them hits the gel a little crooked, doesn't get that, like, that hydraulic force into that hollow point, we may have expansion issues. I don't know, but that's my fear, and that's what I'll be looking for in that next video. Another thing, I don't know if it's a clue. I don't know if it matters, but our charge weights between the 2 bullets, so the Lehigh's about a 194 and these are about a 200. And of course the seating depth is a little bit different, so your case volume of a loaded round ends up being a little bit different. But especially with Winchester 296 in the 16 inch gun, let's see if I can find the 2 targets. So with this bullet, 7.8 grains got us about 1050, and with the Lehigh, 9.1 grains got us about 1050. That's a pretty massive difference. Pretty massive difference. So the function, and the Lehigh functioned much better in the carbine gas gun with Winchester 296 than we did with the Makers, and I think it was just the matter of a whole lot less powder in these Maker loads. So I'm wondering if we could stretch the Makers out a little bit, increase that overall length, see how far we could get before we ran into issues, which more case capacity, that should mean we need more powder to reach the velocity to get a little bit more gas. And I don't know if that would it would probably make a difference in function. I don't know if it would make a difference in accuracy, but I think I'm going to buy some more bullets and play around some more, because this is fascinating. I find this fascinating. Or maybe it has to do with, you know, the hardness between the two different bullets, or these guys just a little less resistance going down the barrel than the Lehighs. I don't know. I don't know much about internal ballistics, you know. I'm pretty ignorant in that realm. So I always get confused by these things, and you know, I'm going to think it over. The next video, you know, our gel video, I'll probably touch on some more of this some more. Maybe I'll take some time, think it over. I'm running out of time this weekend, so it's going to be at least a week before we get the next video up. So I'm going to have some time to ponder what happened here, and maybe come up with some more theories. Maybe we can get some more bullets and test some more. But I guess the good thing is, for each gun, you know, each gun liked a different bullet, but I've at least got, you know, a pretty good shooting load for each gun. But it would be nice to see each bullet shoot well in both guns. Alright, I've gabbed enough. Is there anything else I need to talk about? I don't think so. See you guys next time.